I'm Marin, and this is Post-its and Pens. Hello and welcome to or welcome back to my channel. My name is Marin, and here you will find a little beauty, a little books, and a little teaching content. So if that sounds like something you might enjoy, I would love for you to subscribe and stick around and join me in my little corner of YouTube. Today's video is going to be my July reading recap, where I take you through all of the books that I read during the month and give you my thoughts and final ratings. So let's go ahead and get into the video. So in July, I did read a total of 9 books. However, I did not complete my full wheel of TBR. For July, I have 2 books that I have not started that I am planning on reading, hopefully soon. I'm waiting for an audiobook hold for one of them to come in at the library. And then I have one that's a nonfiction book about like how to set up your classroom. So I'm going to be looking at that one this coming week because I'm setting up my classroom. But other than that, I have Anna and the French Kiss, which I am about 60% of the way through. So that one will be finished soon. So I did not read 3 of the 5 books from my monthly TBR, but I'm not super strict with myself on TBRs, and I have a kind of general rule that I will finish the books before the end of the year because I don't like to have like carryovers from the previous year. So whatever I didn't get to, I will eventually get to before the end of the year. And we're just gonna move on now to the books that I did read this month. Several of which were not on that TBR. So I'm going to go through these in order from my least favorite to my favorite, because we're going to end the video on a high note. So let's go ahead and get into it with number 9. So my least favorite book from July is Things We Do in the Dark by Jennifer Hillier. Now I think I'm kind of like the odd man out with this book, so take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. However, I got about 108 pages into this and I DNF'd it. I could see where one part of the mystery was going, like it was blatantly obvious. And I don't know if that was just a me thing, because a lot of other reviews for this mentioned how the book was keeping them on the edge of their seat. They didn't see what was coming. I could see what was coming in this like a mile away. The only thing I didn't know was like the murder mystery part of this. And for that, I flipped to the end and read that. In my opinion, it wraps up far too quickly considering like the lead up and the building that the book is taking you through. So this was just a dud for me. I knew I was going to wind up really not enjoying it, so I just DNF'd. If you're curious about more of my thoughts about this, I did a vlog where I talked about this book amongst 2 others that I'm going to mention in this top 9 of July, if you will. So you can check that out, but I did not like this. This was a big bummer for me. All right, coming in at number 8 is The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. This was the July Literally Dead book club pick, which is why I read it. I was one of the few that actually liked Survive the Night. Like I was able to like put aside some things that were not great about that book and still really enjoy it. I gave that one 4 stars. This one, however, I'm giving 2 stars. I did not like the main character, and it's not even that she is an alcoholic, so you're getting like a blow by blow of everything she's drinking. That wasn't even what I didn't like. I didn't like her personality at all, really. And the story itself was just not good. It was not good. It was not very well plotted or planned out. I felt like she was Riley Sager was doing like almost 2 stories in one book, and it didn't really make sense. The main character is a very unreliable narrator, which is like part of the whole thing. Survive the Night had the same type of narrator, and again, I liked that one. This one I just didn't really like. There were like some red herrings thrown in, which were supposed to like get you like wondering, ooh, okay, maybe it's this person who's responsible. I don't know. I just really didn't like it, and I gave it 2 stars. That's about all I have to say. I am curious to tune into the live show where they're going to discuss this book as part of the Literally Dead book club, because I'll be curious to see who else kind of shares my opinion. I just was not a fan of this one. All right, coming in at number 7 is my Nancy Drew book that I was actually supposed to read in June and didn't. It is The Secret of Redgate Farm. It is the 6th Nancy Drew book. Is the cover not cute? I love the cover. However, this book, not my favorite of the ones that I've read so far this year. This one starts right out the gate with the use of the word Oriental to describe a person. And I know that it's like a product of its time. I totally get that, but that was a little off-putting, like kept throwing me out of the story. There's also a section in here where George keeps commenting on Bess's weight. And at one point, George hurts her ankle or her knee or something like that. And the girls, Nancy and Bess, have to like carry her back. And she's like, aren't you glad I don't eat as much as you do, Bess? Like, it was just annoying, y'all. It was annoying. So this one had some elements that made this not so enjoyable. I'm giving it 2.5 stars. I'm still going to continue on with my reread. All in all, they're like a romping good time, but this one definitely has some issues that I just want to put out there. Coming in at number 6 is another pick for the Literally Dead book club. This was the June pick, and that is Hide by Kiersten White. I did a whole vlog where I read this one. I'll link it up above if you would like to check it out. Basically, my issue with this is that she was trying to write it for an adult audience, and she should have gone ahead and kept it as a YA book. The characters read very, very young. They're supposed to be like in their late 20s, 30s, mid 30s, potentially. One of them is a veteran from, I think like the war in Afghanistan. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's like what they were getting at. And it just read really young. I felt like she could have taken this in a much darker route that would have made it more interesting. I also think had I known that this is essentially a Minotaur retelling, I might have gone into it with like a little bit of a different expectation. She tries to do some social commentary in here, which is very heavy-handed. She's like hitting the reader over the head with it. And while I appreciate people bringing to light issues that are in our world today, I didn't like the way she was doing it. I just felt like it was kind of clumsy. So in the end, I'm giving this one 3 stars. I enjoyed it. I just think it could have been way better than it was. All right, coming in at number 5 is Other People's Children, Cultural Conflict in the Classroom by Lisa Delpit. This is a nonfiction book in which she's compiled some essays that she's written about basically teaching children of color in the modern day classroom. Now I say modern day, but this book was actually written in the mid 1990s and then re-released in like 2006. So, as you're reading, you kind of would think, oh, surely we've tackled some of these issues by now. Nope. Nope, we have not. And in fact, with like the current state of our country, we've gone even further backwards, in my opinion, in some places. So it was very interesting to read. However, I felt like it was a little bit dry. I'm giving it 4 stars because I do think it is very important to read and it resonated a lot with me. There were a lot of things that I highlighted and like made notes on, put stars next to. So I really, really enjoyed it. It just was a little bit dry. So that's my one and only complaint, but 4 stars for this one. I did enjoy it. Okay, coming in at number 4 is Book of 1,000 Days by Shannon Hale. I read this one on my Kindle, so no physical book to show you. This is a retelling of a very little known fairy tale. I had no idea of its existence, but basically we're following Dashti, who is the servant, lady, lady's maid, whatever, to a princess, for lack of a better word, Lady Saren. Lady Saren is locked in a tower for 7 years because she's gone against her father's will in terms of who she is supposed to marry. And Dashti decides to follow her lady into this tower. And she's basically making note of everything that happens to them while they are in that tower, what happens after they manage to escape the tower. And Dashti is quite stubborn and strong-willed. She is pretty funny, actually, and just very headstrong. And I really, really liked reading from her perspective. Not so much her lady. Lady Saren is kind of a wet blanket, if you will. But all in all, this was a really fun fairy tale retelling. I gave it 4 stars, and I would highly recommend. All right, now we are into my top 3, and I'm gonna go ahead and say up front, all 3 of these got 5 stars. I could probably redo the order of these if you asked me again like next week. So just know all 3 of these were 5 stars. They could potentially all show up in my top books of the year. So keep that in mind, but this is the order that I'm putting them in right now. So coming in at number 3 is Yerba Buena by Nina LaCour. This is the second book that I have read by this author. I read Everything Leads to You earlier in the year and really, really loved that one. This one is another 5-star. This one is adult. This is her adult debut, and it follows 2 girls who kind of keep like crossing paths, and it's just not the right time for them to be together, basically. So it's like their stories kind of interwoven. You get to know each of them really, really well, and kind of what happens to them as they become adults and try to navigate their lives. So I really, really enjoyed this one. I felt like it had really gorgeous language. It's slower moving than Everything Leads to You, and that potentially could affect if you were reading in print. I listened to the majority of this on audio and really, really loved the audio version of this. It was just a really beautiful story, and I'm really glad that I decided to finally read a book by her this year, because now I want to go back and reread everything she's written, because I feel like she's going to become a favorite author, and this was no exception. All right, coming in at number 2 for right now is Aristotle and Dante Dive into the Waters of the World by Benjamin Alire Saenz. I think I said that right. Apologies if I didn't. This is the sequel to Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe, I think is what it's called. And I read that one last year. I was really late to the game getting into Aristotle and Dante. So I read the first one last year, loved it, gave it 5 stars. It's one of my favorite books of the year, I believe. That was a long time ago, can't quite remember. But this one was really lovely, but in a different way. So in the first book, you are following Ari as he kind of works to figure himself out. He is very angry and sad the vast majority of the first book. And the one thing I want to just mention is that that is much different in this book. He's really come into his own. He's learned how to reach out and like ask for help. He's learned to let people in. He's much happier, which is not to say this is all sunshine and rainbows, because it is not. But I just really found the difference in Ari's personality kind of striking and very interesting to read about. So I really, really loved this one. I think I liked the first one slightly more, but this one was a very, very good sequel. I've not heard hardly anyone talk about this. So if you've read this one, I know a couple of you have like commented on some of my posts and said I read that and really liked it. But if you've read this one and liked it, feel free to tell me down below, because I really don't think it's gotten the love that the first one did. I will say I think the sequel was a bit unnecessary, but I'm glad he wrote it, because selfishly I was happy to have more of Ari and Dante's story. So yes, really liked this one as well. All right, and my top book of the month right now is Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys. This is another historical fiction book. That's what she's known for. I read Between Shades of Grey last year, gave it 5 stars. It was one of my favorites of the year. This one is about a little known maritime disaster featuring the Wilhelm Gustloff, which was a ship, a German ship that used to be like a cruise ship for like the everyday man, but was brought into service to help evacuate Germans from the eastern portion of the country as the Soviet army is like pushing in to their territory. And it's a maritime disaster, so that tells you what happens to it. But basically, this is telling the story of 4 teenagers and how their lives become intertwined and what happens to them set amongst this maritime disaster. So really, really liked this one. Very heartfelt and emotional. It's actually somewhat of a companion novel to Between Shades of Grey, which I did not put together until I was like almost finished with this one. So just something to keep in mind. This one focuses on Joanna, and Joanna is Lena's cousin. So through Between Shades of Grey, Lena is wondering what happened to her cousin. This is what happened to her cousin. So yeah, just throwing that out there. I did vlog both this one and Aristotle and Dante. It's in the same vlog that I read Things We Do in the Dark. So I've already linked it above, but check that out if you would like to have like more of my thoughts. But this is a really wonderful story. She is so good at writing historical fiction. I cannot wait to read the rest of her books. All right, so this is upside down, don't mind that, but here are the books from July. For the most part, there are a couple that are missing. I had to turn the Raleigh Sager book back into the library, and then I had an ebook. But yeah, 9 books is pretty darn good for the month. I also am, as I mentioned, almost finished with Anna and the French Kiss. So here I am, right here. So I have just a little bit left. So pretty good reading month for July. I'm very, very happy with it, and 3 5 stars. Can't complain. So I hope you enjoyed this reading recap. If you did, please leave me a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to my channel if you would like to see more from me, and I will see you in my next video. Bye everyone.